let's go then. Real quick introductions for everybody, and then we'll just hop into maybe if you have any questions, Ross, right off the bat, and then I'm sure that'll lead us right into discussion. So the way let's just go with my screen since I am kind of the moderator or whatever. We'll just start with Marcia. Is that how you say your name?
Yeah. I answer to Marcia too, but
Marcia, okay.
I don't get called that all that often.
Okay.
Yeah, my parents called me Marcia.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got my technicians the first week of March. I got my novice 45 years before that. And I didn't do any amateur radio in between. So,
okay. So you're pretty new then?
You're very new.
Okay. And then Pete?
Me? Oh, okay. Well, let's see. I got my license when I was 13 back in 1965. And so I've been active ever since, heavily HF, but now that I'm in SOTA, a lot of heavily VHF, but now a lot of SOTA, so we're more HF most of the time, except for all of the, summit to summit stuff we do together.
Yeah.
So
okay.
yeah, been here a long time.
Good. Okay, Chris.
I'm actually the association manager for Arizona, although I don't do much other than coordinate events with Charlie and stuff like that. And I watch people to make sure I believe they're really on the hills. One of my main jobs is to look and see who's doing the activations and do I believe it. I have.
Okay. All right, Chris.
Chris K7TAB. I've been a ham for only 3 or 4 years, and I started SOTA very shortly after that. And I'm still relatively new compared to these SOTA mountain goats here. But I'm a techno nerd, so I'll know anything about any of the technical stuff, websites and stuff.
Cool.
He's one of those.
Ross?
My name is Ross Tucker. I am the cat herder / ringleader of my little group. I've been doing, although Marcia has recently been duped into, has agreed to take over the chairmanship for our winter field day activities. I've been leading field days for about 10 years now, I think, in various group sizes. And this last one, as much as propagation was the worst thing in the world, the group itself, we practiced like anything for it, and it really came together. I'm very pleased. People had several new people get their licenses for it. Anyway, love field day, love doing that nature combination of nature and ham radio. So SOTA seems like something that I might just fall in love with.
Great, I hope you do. All right, Keith. Can't hear you, Keith. And yeah, I can't hear you. Dang it. But it shows that you're not muted either. That's odd. Can anybody else hear Keith?
Maybe disconnect your radio.
All right. How about I do it for you, Keith? Okay. So Keith, I don't know how to exactly pronounce his last name, Schlotman, I think, is very active in Summits on the Air. And he's I think number 4 or 5 in Arizona as far as points go. Very much he likes to do the unique peaks that haven't been done very often, and he does a lot of them. It doesn't seem like he really cares too much about the points. He just, like, every time you turn around, he's on a peak, and it doesn't matter what the points is. He's trying to do a new one. So that's what I know about him. So it's too bad we can't hear him. I'm sure he'd have other things to say, but maybe get things figured out later. Now we'll go to Dan.
Hi, everybody. Dan DeVlier, KC7MSU. And I've been doing SOTA since, I think it was 2015. So really enjoying it. I'm kind of trying to get as many points this year as I can so I can get this thing finished off so I can relax a little more on some peaks that I haven't gotten to do yet.
Cool. All right, and then last is Andrew, but not least. And Andrew does have audio, I think.
Yeah, I do have audio. So I'm pretty new to radio in general, not just amateur radio, and I've never done SOTA before, but it seems really interesting. So yeah, I'm here with Dr. Tucker, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. All right. Well, so I just wanted to get everybody together because you're doing, I mean, what I would do probably, and asking like all kinds of different people, all kinds of different questions, and just so you can collect data, it seems like is what you're doing. And so I thought we'd get all together and talk a little bit about some of the things that you all might need to know and consider when getting on the air on a summit and trying to get those points for summits on the air. So what have you found so far, Ross? I mean, do you still have any questions at all, or you have it figured out, or what do you think?
Figured out? Assuredly not, and I'm sure that I'll discover just how not figured out everything is once I get there. Oh, and it looks like perfect timing. Dylan just got his family squared away. Dylan is one of my other members. Dylan, you want to say hi?
Hi there.
This is
Hi,
Dylan,
guys.
old friend of mine from undergraduate who we just reconnected with recently.
Okay, great. Welcome, Dylan.
Do you guys actually have a club name? I know you're a group of people just get together, but is there like a name to your club or anything?
We've been going by Saguaro Nights Amateur Radio Club, but we haven't incorporated formally in any way whatsoever.
Oh, okay, just curious
Should
because
we?
that's a pretty big group.
Yes, so it's 6 people, I think.
Yeah, that's cool.
Should we incorporate? Are there advantages to doing that?
No, not really. I mean, I was just curious. Like we have groups just associate like we have over the years. It just all started out that way. And in fact, I met SOTA through work. That's where I actually got into SOTA. The previous association manager was Dan, W7 Delta Delta Mike, DDM. And he's the guy who set up all of the summits in Arizona. He's when it set up all of that, all the database and figured out what were peaks and what weren't. So he basically got into it, but then he just really liked setting it up. He liked that end of it. He didn't really want to like run it. So he said, so I happened to work with him. He said, hey, you want to be association manager? I said, okay, why not? Because there was nobody else at the time, really. And so that was back in 2013. That's when I got in. And that was at Freescale, which is the old Motorola. I used to work for Motorola and then Freescale. And I just retired from NXP. So I never left the company, just kept changing names. So that's how I ended up association manager, just kind of by default. And we needed somebody to do something, and that's what we did.
Cool.
So yeah, and anyway, that was a small group. They had like 3 guys, and at the time, and so I had a group of people I talked to on the radio all the time, and I just started saying, hey, I'm doing SOTA, and little by little, a bunch of the VHF 6-meter guys all got into it. And then and it kind of grew from there. People kept saying, hey, if you're on SOTA, get on our frequency, 144.410. We sit there all the time and we yap about SOTA or whatever else you want to yap about. So that's kind of ended up being the default frequency for everybody. Just if you want to get on the radio, everybody's sitting. A lot of people are sitting there listening. There's other guys too. They do 6-meter stuff on there. They do HF stuff on there. They talk about digital stuff on there. I mean, whatever. It's kind of a free for all. But if somebody's on a summit, then a lot of times we show up on 144.410. So that's kind of the go-to frequency. We don't use 5 too much because of the local QRM, I guess you want to call it. It's just always kind of busy, and they're not real happy to see us. So we kind of just picked on the other frequencies.
I like 144, 144.41, right? It's a palindrome too.
Yeah.
Easy to remember.
Yeah, it is. And we do the same thing for like 1296. If you're on 1296, we went 1296.410. So we try to make it all so we didn't have to think about it much. So, still 410, okay, somewhere, right?
Okay, so let's
the regular calling frequency.
Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how we kind of do SOTA. We all do it a little different, but I think the first step usually for all of us is we got to pick a peak, choose a peak. And I know you've asked about certain peaks, and so maybe we talk about that a little bit first, because you asked me, let's go on I offered to take you on one, and you said, well, what's a good one? And I said, well, Scarlet. And there were reasons for that. Just like there might be reasons in December for a different one. We might not do that. We might do a different one. So it just really depends. I chose Scarlet because it's close. We'll be dealing with heat, but we get up early, and it's probably one of the easiest in-town summits. There are others that are probably just as easy, but it's kind of right off the freeway and easy to find, I think. So it's the one I chose. But how I usually go about choosing a peak is I just bring up nowadays. I just bring up a website called SOTLAS, which is SATLAS, I think it's called. And I can send you the link. I can probably put it in the chat here. But it has a map of the whole United States or even the whole world and all the different pins associated with the peaks and their points. And so I'll look at that, and it also shows how many times it's been activated and things like that, and choose one that way. So you can typically tell if a peak is easy or relatively easy by the number of times it's been activated now. Used to not always be that way, but that's kind of how it is now. But I don't know, Pete, what do you do to choose a peak?
Well, when I go looking, of course, I've done 465 activations now, and I've done 267 uniques. At first, I was doing uniques. I did 202 straight uniques when I started SOTA. I never duplicated till number 203, and it just happened to be Scarlet Mountain. So, because Scarlet was the first hill I ever did, and so I decided when I decided to break the streak of uniques, I went ahead and did Scarlet again. So, but I use Google Earth. I have an overlay that I use for Google Earth. It's created on the SOTA 3 website. There's actually a mapping tool in there, and you can create an overlay that drops right into Google Earth, which is pretty cool. So, because I can play with Google Earth, I don't know if you guys deal with that or not, but you can actually sit there and you can, tilt the Earth and, zoom in, zoom out, look from the side. You can do all kinds of strange stuff, and you can see. I think you can see the terrain a little bit better. So that's what I use. It also it's set up so that it will show you which peaks have been activated and which peaks haven't. And if you click on a peak, it gives you all the information about who's done it, when they did it, how many contacts they made. The same stuff that's in SOTA Atlas. It's actually the same. They all use the same data. They just present it a little bit different. SOTA Atlas or SOTA LAS shows like topo, lines and things like that, which I think you can actually use on Google. But I just like Google because it looks like the real thing to me. And since I've hiked a peak, I can kind of look at it and go, does that look like what I did? And I can decide how good Google is. Sometimes it does it really well. Sometimes it matches real well. It shows what's really going on. Other times it's completely wrong. You get up there and go like, this looked really easy. And what's this 20-foot wall here kind of thing? So I use that one. I use Google Earth.
Yeah, so it's important as you're hearing, you got to really kind of plan well when you're doing an activation. Make sure you know your hiking route and stuff like that. Chris, what do you think about, have you had any experiences with that?
Yeah, I use the same stuff. SOTA Maps is absolutely the most monstrous tool I've ever seen in my life. I keep finding cool things that it does. Every time I think I know everything, I find out something else that it does. So I use that a lot. I'll use that to download all the waypoints into Google Earth. I'll use that. Anything I can find to help me if I'm going someplace I haven't been before, I'll use it.
Yeah. Dan, what do you use for route finding?
I use a lot of the tracks that previous people have put up if I'm going someplace where someone's already been, or a lot of times they'll have some notes in the peak notes, which is really handy as far as, like, for example, where they parked, or which, if they created a route, where did they put it and stuff. There's a lot of routes in a lot of various places, so I like to download those. But I primarily use Google Maps most of the time for what when I'm out looking for someplace for the first time, and especially how to get there.
Okay. Can we hear Chris or Keith still, or no?
Tommy, can you hear me yet?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I also use some of the ones mentioned already. Hike Arizona that Chris just messaged is a good resource. I always try to post my GPS track onto the SOTA Maps tracking page, and very few people actually do that. But when you do find one, that can be really helpful. But I use lists of John, because I think one of the most important things is to make sure you can access the summit legally, and that sometimes requires looking up to find out land ownership, and Lists of John has a way to do an overlay that tells you if it's in the national forest, or yeah. There's another website I use for land ownership called acrevalue.com. That sometimes is helpful. And Google Maps, CalTopo sometimes. It varies a lot on how you can find out how to get to the summit, but I actually think the planning stage is probably the most crucial of the whole activation. If you don't if you just figure I'm going to drive up and figure out my way up the mountain, there's a really good chance. And I learned that early on. I went to activate a mountain here in Tucson that had never been activated, and I thought there was a nice trail, and it turned out it was I never made it to the top. And so then I went back and kind of sharpened my pencil and figured out the right way to get up there. And I just think the planning is really critical.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, and that's I agree with what Keith is saying. And if you get someplace and you're not really sure, or if it looks like it's not going to be a good idea, go with your gut feel and walk away from it. What was it, 2 weeks ago now? I went up by the Grand Canyon, and I got all dehydrated on my first summit, and I had 2 more planned for that day, and I was way too dehydrated, and there was some lightning in the area, so I scrubbed the rest of them. Always go with the side of safety, come back another day.
And that's really true. That's really true right now with the monsoon season. You really have to watch out for these hills. By 10 o'clock in the morning, sometimes up north, you can wake up to big old lightning and big storms behind you or right on top of you. So I think we've all been run off peaks. So this time of year, you really got to keep an eye on stuff if you're up in the high country, because those storms just show up like overnight. Even down in Tucson, actually, too. I'm sure he sees it. I had it on Mount Lemmon one, same thing. You're sitting there thinking all is good. 15 minutes later, you get rained up and lightning.
Yeah.
So that's tricky this time of year.
So there's a lot of different things that you need to be aware of, and I would say 90%, maybe, I don't know, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, 90% of the peaks, maybe 80%, don't have a trail. You just bushwhack. And so you got to be aware that most of them, you're just kind of finding your own route, and there's nobody probably that's done it before. So we'll go to Keith, and then we'll go to Marcia if she has any questions, and then go from there.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Charlie, is most of them do not have a trail to the top. And so a good topo map can help you find the path that's of least resistance. And I found that usually if you can stay on a ridge, on the top of a ridge, that's going to be your easiest way up. Don't go for a gully.
Having said that, we have people of all different types of health abilities, and so you can do SOTA still. You can do only trails if you want. It's just that you'll be limited. But Marcia, do you have any questions so far about what we've been talking about?
Well, that just raised up a question for me. So if you're planning something where there's really not a trail, can you post your possible trails somewhere in case you get into trouble?
Yes. Who wants to answer that one?
Well, it's always good to just leave somebody, certainly where you're going, and then a possible route. I just always tell my wife this, I'm going up this hill, and a lot of the hills I've done, when I did them the first, there were no trails. So I just basically said, okay, I looked at Google Earth, said, I think I'm going up this way, but I figured she didn't need to know that. She just needed to know where I was going. So I just make sure they know where I'm going. If you can post a route, that's great. But on a new summit that's never been done, you're not really sure till you get there and look at it, no matter what you do. Because I changed my mind many times. I thought, I was going up this way, but no, I'm going to go up some other route. Generally, you get close. But Keith's right. Ridges, normally you look at a ridge and you hit that ridge and then walk the ridge up. That's typically that's probably 90% of it.
Yeah, that's what I do too. And you could, it's probably, I don't know how useful it would be, but you can draw your own route and post it to the SOTA Maps page, and then just reference it and say, hey, I just drew a route, and if you want to see where I'm going to go, I'm going to try to go, here it is. So it is possible to actually create your own route and post it to the SOTA Maps if you want. So,
and you can carry a Garmin GPS that has a satellite link that actually beacons out exactly where you are. Yeah, and stuff.
Yeah. And I hopefully, okay, any other questions, Marcia, before we go to Dylan?
No, I can't think any.
Okay, Dylan, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, Andrew?
No questions.
Okay, well, let's move on then. So once you've got everything planned out, then, you know, come the day of the activation, you kind of, I always just time it out. I'm like, okay, it's going to take me 30 minutes to get to the trail, and then it's going to get me, you know, it's a mile, so it's going to take me another 30 minutes to get to the top. And so I'm probably going to start activating around 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, so when you put, and then what you would do is put an alert on the page, and you would say, so everybody could know that you're there, probably even a little earlier than just like right before you go. But you could, whenever, even when you're on top, you could probably do it. But I have once because I wanted to pick up some RBN stuff, although I could have just used the internet. But anyway, what was I going to say? So you put an alert out, and then kind of with your best guess. Have you guys seen that yet? How you do that?
For the alerts on text, yeah, I saw that.
Okay. And then the next thing you do is you show up at the trailhead and you just head to the top with your gear. So I guess maybe the next thing we talk about is gear. Ross, you've kind of you've collected data. I don't even think that we as a group knows who all is using what. So you probably have more data than we do. So what did you find on what people are using?
So I've had a lot of different suggestions, and I just purchased quite a couple $100 worth of things since I was just talking to someone earlier.
Brian, right?
I'm still planning to bring my TS590 full-sized Kenwood radio up because some of us don't know Morse code, and I want to make this accessible for beginners as well. I mean, ham beginners as well as SOTA beginners. I just purchased a lithium battery that can handle at least half power for a while. I didn't do the calculation, but it'll support half power for a good long while if we need it. But it sounds like we also don't need that. Got a telescoping mast and and it was suggested that I build a link dipole. I think for this, I'm just going to take up my single band dipole and not try to rush construction. For this, what I'm talking about is in 11 days, Charlie and I are going up Scarlet, as he said earlier.
Did you have a question, Dan?
Which band dipole do you have again?
Well, that's going to be one question for you. I've got one for 20 and one for 40. Which do you think will be better taking up the morning of the 30th?
I personally have been getting a lot better luck on 40 with single sideband. I primarily operate single sideband. I've only got 2 or 3 CW contacts and haven't even actually tried it on a SOTA yet. But I've had better luck on 40. I don't know how everybody else has been doing, but that's where I've been at lately.
It kind of depends on the time of day. If you're early in the morning, 20 isn't open. If you're real early on a peak, you're probably 20 is just hard to make contact. So you're right. 40 is really good, especially good in the mornings, and it's long. That skip's kind of long, but you go to 40, there'll be somebody on there. Now, first 40 is a little bit longer antenna, but not a big deal on most peaks. So I always try to do 20 and 40, but again, early in the morning, 40 is probably the better choice. And by midday, but by midday, 20 is wide open, and you can work with lots of people on 20 when it is open.
So I guess this brings me to one thing that well, first of all, yeah, we'll do, is it just you and me now again, or is the rest coming up? Everybody's coming, right?
Marsha, Dylan, Andrew, and one other who's not here, JD, have all signed up to come.
Okay, so Scarlet Mountain, the area up there on top, and this is something you should know, you should kind of look at every peak you go on top of. It's pretty tight. There's enough room for everybody to be up there, and there's enough room for a dipole. I don't know how long it takes you to set up your vertical, or how much room it's going to take. I'm not familiar with it, but
I was talked out of bringing the vertical for this time.
Okay, all right, good. So I mean, I'm happy to bring my gear and let you guys use it. I could just bring alcohol wipes and wipe it afterwards or whatever if you want. I would be more than happy. That way you can see how I set mine up, and then you can operate with it. It goes against one of the recommendations that I give people who are new, which is to use your own gear and become familiar with it. But at the same time, you know, it would save you guys from packing up any gear at all. and having to put up anything. You could watch me do it, and then you can operate from mine if you want to do that. It's up to you.
That sounds very generous, and I mean, I'll give my group a vote too, but I think that sounds pretty darn good.
Okay.
Dylan, Mark,
Just why don't you guys talk offline and then email
Yeah,
me and let me
that's
know
good.
what you guys decide.
That sounds good.
Okay, so as far as gear goes, maybe we just go around and tell everybody what we use. I've been using the FT817 for the whole time, and I started on sideband and then switched over to CW about a year in. And I use a link dipole that I made. The one I'm using right now covers 60 meters, 40 meters, 30 meters, and 20 meters. But I also made another one that does the higher bands. And that's what I use almost exclusively. And I almost exclusively now just do Morse code because you just have so much more success on it. But we have two people in the room that only do sideband, and so they'll tell you what they use. But let's go to Keith next, and he can tell you what he uses.
Oh, I use a Elecraft KX2 most of the time. Sometimes if I have a very long hike or if I'm doing a trail run, I'll use a MTR, a little QRP MTR radio. But most of the time it's the KX2, and in fact, most of the time I also carry the amplifier for the KX2, and so I run just under 100 watts most of the time. And that does drain your battery, so that means a heavier battery as well. So my pack usually is about 40 pounds, and including the water and stuff. And so when you said you were going to bring your Kenwood up there, I feel for you, because it takes a lot of extra energy to carry extra weight, but I enjoy sitting there for a couple hours and making as many contacts as I can. And I don't always bring the amp, but most of the time I do. And for an antenna, I use an inverted V off-center fed dipole, which actually, because the KX2 has an internal tuner, I can run all bands on that. It'll even tune 80 meters, but pretty much 60 through 10 meters that I can operate on that setup. So.
So that's what I didn't know about Keith, is that he did, because I know that, I operate 5 watts and always have. I've never, except for a handful of times I've done QRO, I always do 5 watts. I didn't know that, Keith, that you take an amplifier up there.
Yeah, and I know that goes contrary to what a lot of people believe. The way I kind of justify it is I also spend a lot of time trying to squeeze out the 10 meter and 12 meter contacts, and that's the way I challenge myself rather than challenging with low power. I challenge by trying to make contacts on bands that lately anyway haven't been real. Although yesterday was pretty phenomenal on 10 and 12 and 15. I had some great success yesterday.
All right, Dan. Dan's sideband, right?
Yep, I run strictly sideband. I haven't activated a peak yet with CW, even though that's on my goal list for before the end of the SOTA season here. So I've got an outing in August, first weekend in August, so maybe I'll try it there. But I run a KX3 as well, and I use a link dipole that I actually bought from SOTA Beams. It's 20, 30, and 40. I really like that antenna. The one I have now, it's on its 3rd season, and I've had no problems with it. What else do I have? I've just got I got 2 different push-up masks that I use, and I've got a 9 amp hour and a 6 amp hour bioenzyme lithium phosphate battery that I use. And then I just use my Kenwood HT for FM contacts. And let's see, I think that's about all I've been hauling up lately.
Yeah.
I used to run an 857, and I really loved that radio, but it was way too heavy. So, and I'm impressed with Keith's statement that he loves a lot of power, because I used to do the same thing. And now I run like 10 or so watts on the KX3, and I'm still amazed. I get all the way out to the East Coast with no problems and get lots of 5.9. So I don't know what's up with that, but it works great.
Cool. Before I give Pete the last word on this, let's listen here from Chris. And Chris actually he's unique because he does SOTA a lot, but I think he has a more of a propensity to favor FM, 2 meters and all that, the whole non-HF stuff, because he's a satellite guy. So speak a little bit to that, what you use, and maybe even some of your satellite stuff.
Yeah, I do a little satellite here and there. Usually I cheat on and go up to Humboldt when I do that, but then I can take my 9700 and all the good stuff. But yeah, I do like FM. It's fun. You guys know it's fun, especially when you're doing long distance simplex stuff. It's a blast. But usually when I'm doing a summit, it'll be the Elecraft KX2, SOTA Beams dipole. Charlie's black middle mast is sitting right here behind me, right there. So pretty much that. Pine Mountain the other day, I did take the 857. That was kind of fun to go QRO up there for a little while. Just a 1 peak day, trying to sneak it in before field day started. That was fun. I think I cranked it up to 50 watts up there. That was, so I got some people in the log that usually fight a little bit with me, but that was a good day. I do have an 817 as well. That doesn't get much use anymore since I got the KX2.
Yeah, once I get my KX2, yeah, that's gonna be.
Yeah, the only time I take it out is for the VHF contest because I can't use more than 10 watts anyway, and it gives me more bands.
All right, Pete.
Okay, well, all of my activations, except for probably about 10 of them, have been on my FT817, which I bought like when they first came out, way back when. Mine's not an ND, it's one of the old FT817s. But and I run QRP. I run it at 5 watts all the time. I have used the same the Black Widow telescoping pole without the top section. So my antenna is the top of my link dipole is about 13 feet in the air. It's actually like an inverted V, of course. It just slopes to the ground. I have all bands on it from 6 meters through 40, and I have extenders for 80 meters when I have lots of real estate or I'm trying to really make sure that W7RV gets a contact or something. I'll take that up and put that up because Tommy begged me to. I also, anyway, so I have it does every single band, which is cool about the link dipoles. I don't need a tuner. And what's not cool about it is you have to go up and unplug it right for the appropriate ones. But to be real honest, if you have a 40 meter, 20 meter dipole, it'd be very hard for you to ever fail on an activation with those 2 bands. Just those 2 bands, you can pretty much get all the contacts you want. Everything else after that is just sort of gravy. But I've caught a lot of 6 meter openings. I've worked up to 50 stations before on top of a summit on 6 meters, as far as the Midwest and the Pacific Northwest and things like that. So I do 6 meters on. I don't have a 2 meter one. I never put the link on for 2 meters. I keep thinking about doing. I also have an MTR3, which is I think the same radio that maybe Keith has. It's a little 4.4 ounce, size of a deck of cards, puts out 5 watts, has no speaker. You have to use earbuds rather, and that's for the long hikes, like the 15-mile hikes or something. I'll take that, but I just don't want to have all the weight. And I do have an amplifier I bought for HF, and I've used it probably about 10 times also, because it requires a bigger battery. I normally carry just a lithium-ion 4.2 ampere hour battery, which is quite light, a little teeny thing, like about the size of 2 packs of cards. So it's pretty light. I do go with the larger coax. On mine, I use the RG58 coax, actually RG8X coax, because of the 6 meters. I don't want to. If I do operate 6, I don't want to have the real lossy coax. But for HF, you don't need it. Like on my MTR, I use the real small RG174. It's like a real small wire, like a power cord you charge your phone on. But the link dipole works real well. I never found a place I couldn't put it on a peak. It's probably the most common thing used, and the most second one, I'm not sure which one's really number 1. That one would be the NPED half wave. People use those. The bottom line is I never have to have a tuner. And I like that. I don't believe in, to me, is the tuner just wastes power. And I said, well, if I'm going to run QRP, I want every milliwatt I can get. So I'm going to go with a little bigger coax, and I'm going to go with the link dipole. So I'm putting out, I know that every band SWR is flat, and I'll get out everything I can. And let's see, what else? Other than that, an array of HTs for 1296, 2 meters. No, we do, all of us use 2 meters. We use 144, 400, or 410 a lot, 144, 410 a lot. on most peaks. And you'd be surprised how far you can work with even just a handy talkie. So when you go up on a hill, it's always worth it to take at least a 2-meter handy talkie with you, because I don't know what the record is, but I've talked over 200 miles from Mount Lemmon to Kendrick Peak, handy talkie to handy talkie. So you can do some pretty good things with it. And that's it. No 60 meters from me. That's one thing I wish I had. I wish I had the 60 meters, but my 817 Soul, it doesn't do that.
Cool. All right.
That's about it. That's about what I run.
Let's go. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go around one more time to Marcia, then Ross, then Dylan, and Andrew, as far as if you have any questions so far. And then the next thing we'll do is maybe just you guys, the people who have been doing SOTA for a while, think about maybe what your number 1 or 2 best pieces of advice you can give a new SOTA guy would be, and we'll share that. And then another round of questions if you have any, and then we can wrap it up, I think. So Marcia, anything at this point?
I always hate it when I can't think of a good question.
It's all right. That means we're doing a good job.
I think so, yeah.
All right, Ross.
Food and water for, in particular for the short hikes, for the short morning activation. How much water to bring?
You know, that really depends on the person, but I would say typically it's probably going to be a quart every half hour, I would say. You'll have extra when you do that, but that's what I kind of do. Is that right? I do one of these leader things. If I have one of these for about every half hour of hiking, I think I'm good. But that's me, and that's the heat. Like when I do, like up north, when I went up north this weekend, I didn't drink any water. It's probably bad. It's probably bad. But I would say bring for tomorrow when we do this, I would say bring maybe 2 of these. And then you don't need any food, I don't think, unless you want maybe just a little bit something for energy, maybe, I don't know, a candy bar or something, just give yourself energy if the hike isn't like doing good, if you're not doing good on the hike or something. Anybody else have any thoughts?
There's a Dunkin' Donuts right at the bottom of that hill.
All right.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think if you overdo anything, if there's one thing you want to take too much with, it's probably water. Even though I end up carrying it all the way up the hill and all the way back down most of the time.
Yeah,
So water's a big deal.
I would agree. I would say bring more than you think you're going to need. And just as an example, my hike yesterday was 7.5 miles long, and the temperature when I started was 91, and when I finished at the end of the day was 99 degrees. So it was a very long, hot hike, and I drank 5 bottles of water, 2 bottles of Gatorade, 1 bottle of vitamin water, and right before I hit the trail, I chugged a full bottle of water. And the water that I brought along was all frozen at the start. And of course, it doesn't stay frozen, but I always bring frozen water because my rig overheats. And so I'll put a couple of frozen water bottles on top of the amplifier fins and hold one up against the radio while I'm operating to try to keep the gear cool. And that also melts the ice, so then it becomes my drinking water on the way down. But yeah, so and for that hike, over 2 gallons of liquid, you really can't bring too much. You want to minimize your weight, obviously, but you just don't want to play games with getting in trouble out there in the heat.
Yeah, especially if something should happen, right? You just never know, so you got to carry extra water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anybody else want to add about the water before we go on to Dylan? All right. Dylan, did you have any questions?
I didn't have any questions.
All right. Andrew?
No questions, but I'm interested in hearing the advice that you all have.
Okay, good. Did we lose somebody? We lost Ross. Oops. I don't know what happened to Ross. Hopefully he pops back in. All right, well, so I would say that for me, one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give would be the 2, I guess. One is make sure you plan thoroughly. your activation. Like Keith said, I think is the most important part of any activation is the planning, and then be really flexible. The other thing I would say is make sure you have the ability to spot yourself. This isn't a contest, and the people don't frown upon you spotting yourself. In fact, it's encouraged, and you're only going to really have good success if you have the ability to spot yourself. Now, I know Pete is the exception to that. A lot of times, especially early on, he can speak to that. He just kind of started sending CW, and people came to him, and it was fine. But I think for these days, most of the time, people spot themselves, and if you don't know what that means, it just means you put an alert or a information on a website, and that information is displayed to all kinds of people who want to chase SOTA, and so it's their way to know that you're on a peak and want people to chase you. So that spotting is very important. So let's go to Pete then.
Okay. Yeah, and you're right. I was going to say it's important to post an alert ahead of time, and for a couple of reasons. You're right. For the first 4 or 5 years I did SOTA, I didn't have a phone, and because I just didn't want a phone. And bottom line is the only way you can get spotted is to be on CW. If you put in an alert, and then they have a thing called the reverse beacon network. If it copies you, and SOTA has some software that looks at the RBN and sees what they're there, and then compares them to the alerts. And if it sees a match, it will then post you automatically, so you get spotted automatically on CW. You put in an alert on SOTA Watch 3. When you get on CW and call CQ, you're automatically get spotted by the computer. So that was really cool. I didn't need to have a phone. The only reason I got it later on, my wife got worried about me, breaking a leg and stuff. So I finally broke down and got a phone. So it's a good idea to put in an alert as soon as you can on SOTA Watch. And there's some tricks to that. You can also, of course, tell everybody, maybe on 410 or whatever, just tell somebody you're going out. Hey, look for me, I'm going out. That works too. And of course, like I say, if you do run CW, it's automatic. So even you may not have to spot yourself. Now I still do, but then I end up seeing both. I end up seeing where I get spotted when I put it in, and then SOTA Watch will spot me automatically. RBN and SOTA Watch will spot me also. So that's a really cool tool, and that's one of the reasons why guys ran CW in the first place. Also, was without cell coverage, it was the only way you could get spotted unless you asked. You work somebody and then you ask them. When I first started SOTA, Dan W7DDM and all, they say they'd get up on a peak for an hour and call CQ, and it'd be hard for them to make 4 contacts. Because everybody's running high power. They don't hear you. If you try to call somebody in a pileup with 5 watts, everybody else is using 100. They just don't hear you, right? Generally. So back in the old days, it was hard to get 4 contacts. For a valid SOTA activation, you have to have 4 contacts, 4 different stations, and it was tough before being able to spot. So spotting is a big deal. So yes, do that. However you do it, you definitely want to do that, and let people know where you're going. That's about it for that, but it was important. And of course, we did the water thing. That's the one thing I've learned too, even though I don't drink water.
Okay,
That's
Keith.
That's what I've been told.
Okay, Keith.
Oh, well, I think probably my biggest piece of advice would be pack your stuff ahead of time. Don't wait until the morning to throw it all together. And if you've done field day, you've probably already learned this, but when you're on a summit, you don't have your car nearby. You can't send somebody to go get a connector or something. And like, I actually have my backpack full and ready to go at all times. And as soon as I finish an activation, the first thing I do is come in the house, plug in the battery to recharge it. Anything else that needs recharging. I get my logbook, and I do paper logging, and I'll get it and transfer it into the computer and put it right back in the pack. And so basically the pack is ready to roll, because it could be terribly, terribly frustrating to get up to the top of the hill and discover that you forgot to pack, and it could be a connector, it could be your antenna, it could be whatever. So I think that's my number one. And then I'll just throw in a second one if I can, and that is, remember, this is all about just having fun. Don't get caught up in trying to I don't know, just go up there and have fun and enjoy the time on the hill. That's the most important thing of all, probably.
Love it. Good advice for sure. All right, Chris.
Yeah, I think you covered the ones that I usually give. Getting yourself spotted is huge. When in doubt, go up. That's the last one I got. Go up.
Head for the high ground, baby.
Dan.
Yeah, most everybody's kind of touched on everything. Definitely spot yourself. Spot yourself. You know, when you get up there, put an alert out as early as you possibly can. It's always appreciated. That gives everybody enough time to look and say, hey, you know, someone's going to be on this peak in a couple weeks. I've never got that one. I'd like to try for that one especially.
And you want to make sure you don't double up with somebody, right? If you don't put an alert in, you could end up on a peak with lots of other people.
Right, and matter of fact, that's happened to me in the past where somebody didn't put an alert up, and I get up to the top of a peak after hiking for an hour, and it's like, what are you doing here, you know? So it's a good courtesy as well for other people who want to get on top of a mountain. And then the other thing that I'll say, and I've been kind of really bad about this, especially this year, is enjoy the adventure. You know, that's the big thing, is enjoy the hike up, stop often, you know, take a few pictures, enjoy the unique environment that we have here in Arizona. You can hike in a lot of different environments and they're all equally beautiful. So enjoy yourself out in nature. That's the biggest reason to do this.
Okay, cool, Dan. Well, since it was a big one for all of us as far as the spotting goes, I'll show you. For me, I do, it's probably backwards for you, but I just do a SMS. I just put it in a text message in a certain format. You got to sign up for this ahead of time, but that's one way to do it, is to just send a text message to a certain phone number and it'll put your spot up. And another way to do it is through this app here. Since I have Android, it's the SOTA. It's what's it called? It's SOTA Spotter. So you can use an app to do it. You could also go directly to the website and do it. So there's a number of different ways. You could actually, even if you get everything set up properly, you could do it through Garmin InReach. But just figure out what method you're going to use and make sure you kind of maybe even send out a practice. Okay, what do you do? Okay, Dan does what?
For iPhone, I love the SOTA Goat app. It works really well.
SOTA Goat. Yep, I've heard a lot of good about that. Chris?
I have lots of apps. SOTA Watch, BK Portalog, APRS through my P72.
You can send a spot with the APRS, yeah.
Yep. So I have a memorized message in here so I remember the format.
Cool. Okay, here's what we'll do. I don't want to keep us past 5 if I can help it, but it just depends on your questions. If you have questions, we'll stay. So we'll go same route again, Marcia, then we'll go Ross, and we'll go Dylan, then we'll go Andrew for any questions. And then I'm going to turn some time over to Pete to just add anything else as the association manager that one thing maybe is to make sure you're aware of Indian lands. I don't know, whatever he wants to talk about, he can talk about for the remainder of the time. So any other questions you might have, Marcia?
I'm going to look up reverse beacon when we get off.
Okay. Ross?
Does anyone do digital?
Not much, but yeah.
Because you have to lug the computer along, or
it's
not much.
It's PETA. It's a pain in the you know what. Yeah. I've done it with my phone. I had my 817 and I connected it to an app on my phone and made contacts that way. But it's just not. It just doesn't work great, you know. So I don't know. I'm gonna try it again. We'll see how it works. But it's always a problem to get it working right.
And it's maybe more stuff to carry too.
It wasn't anything more for me, because really it was just the 817 in my phone, which I already carry. It had it had everything in it, so it just I didn't have my 817 set up right, I think. Yeah,
Burke KF7NP has run some digital, but he takes up like a little tablet and battery. He's got a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
His is pretty involved.
And his, yeah, see, that's the thing. It's pretty involved, yeah. Okay, Dylan?
I still don't have any questions.
Okay. All right, how about Andrew?
So I just want to confirm that the Summits on the Air apps let you can allow you to tell other people what time that you're going to be on a summit, and like of course other information about your trip, and that you can also see when other people are doing that.
Exactly.
How does that work?
Yeah, okay. Well, so let me see if I can pull one up here and maybe kind of show you. You can kind of see this app right here. I don't know how well you can see it. My camera's not the greatest, but it gives the peak number, the frequency, and your call sign. And that's for people who are chasing. They'll see that, and so basically you'll need to send your call sign, your frequency, and what peak you're on. And when you do, and you get it, and you spot yourself, then that's what they see. So yeah, so there's two different nomenclature here. There's an alert and a spot. A spot is when you send information to the chasers, letting them know that you're on a summit, what the summit is, and what frequency you're on, and what your call sign is. And then the alert is something you set up ahead of time, letting people know, hey, I plan on being on this peak at this time. So they'll, and using these frequencies. So you can, if you just go to the website that we have posted here in the chat, the one there, I kind of messed up in sending and putting that link there. It's not, it shouldn't be that much text there. Let me redo it and see if I can do it a little better. Yeah, that, okay, in the chat, you go there and you can put up alerts and spots that way on the website. But then, yeah, all of the apps work the same way. I think there's just an API that plugs into it and does that.
Okay, thanks for explaining the difference between alerts and spots. That makes more sense now.
Okay. Okay, so Pete, let's wrap it up with you. And then if there's any other questions you guys have, we can either meet again or you can send emails or whatever. But it sounds like we'll just plan on a meeting at Scarlet Mountain Trailhead. I sent you the information already. And we will use my gear, and I'll show you how I set it up. And we'll hike to the top, we'll activate, and then we'll come on back down. All right?
Thank you so much, you guys.
Yeah, okay, Pete.
Yeah, all I can think of is everybody aware of the web pages like SOTA Watch 3, how to get to the SOTA Watch page where you can put in an alert. You need to do that. And then the other one is the Arizona SOTA, azsota.io group. If you join that, we can send you messages, and it'll go right to your email, and people put in there that, hey, I'm going out in the morning, last second we put on there, I'm going up on Scarlet Mountain in the morning, so look for me, and that kind of stuff. Those two are really good, and it's an easy way to get in touch with you, and we can, it's not a chat page, but you can message back and forth and stuff like that. So those are two good pages that are real good for that sort of thing. And on the app, I use VK Portal Log, and for my spotting out in the hills. It's real simple because you can put it in ahead of time, and then all you have to do is like basically say self spot, and then type in the frequency and hit and send, and boom, it goes. It puts everything in for you. So it lets you put in everything ahead of time except whatever frequency you want to be on, and mode. You got to enter those two things. It also will log for you if you want to log things. It's got a logger, which I don't use. I don't trust electronic logs. I do the paper log like Keith. Although I haven't been rained on heavily yet, that could be a problem. But yeah, SOTA's tons of fun, and I do it for the hiking. Really, I've always just liked to hike, and when I found I liked to hike and play radio and take the dog and go camping and do a little four-wheeling all at the same time, I said, hey, it doesn't get too much better than that. So that's kind of how I got into SOTA. It combines so many things that you can do. And if you're an outdoorsy person at all, if you go fishing or hunting or hiking or any of that stuff, chances are when you're out there, there's a SOTA summit near you. So it's like, hey, you pack the radio and you get a chance, you go, I'm going to walk over on that hill over there. And what the heck? So it's a neat hobby. And the good point is it keeps you in shape too. Especially if you do some of the crazy ones. I've lost 35 pounds since I started doing SOTA. And I'm still losing weight actually, right? Which is, I think I'm just getting older. But anyway, but I lost a lot of weight and became a lot healthier doing SOTA. There's no doubt about it. So there's a lot of benefits to it. And it is just fun. So just get up there and have fun. It doesn't matter how many contacts you make. As long as you're having fun, that's the bottom line. And we do have some fun events we do throughout the year. And those will be on those web pages. You'll see it. Like, you know, we do these outings where we do S2S Madness, Summit to Summit Madness. Everybody goes out and gets on a 10-point peak all at the same time on one day, and everybody goes nuts talking to each other. And we've had 27 people on mountains at the same time. And it's just crazy fun. It's just, you won't believe how much fun it is. And you're on all bands and all frequencies all at the same time. It's fun. So there's some neat stuff we're doing. So anyway, I think you'll enjoy it. It's a little addictive, a little, I guess. Yeah, I'm addicted. Once you start doing it, it's hard to stop, and it just is. That's the way it is for me. I know that. So anyway, I think you'll have fun.
Cool. Hey, Chris, did you have a question? I mean, a comment?
No, I was just, Pete was talking about he didn't trust VK Portalog, but I use it to log on every summit. I
Yeah.
trust it.
Yeah, I just don't trust losing. Yeah, I just don't want to lose it because I hit the wrong button.
It's way better than trying to read my writing.
Okay, I understand that. Yes, I couldn't read your writing either. Yeah.
That brings up one other point before we go. I know we're after time, but I promised, but we got to cover this real quick. To the four of you, Pete mentioned that we have activities. Well, that we're going to actually be on a summit with hopefully other people for Mini Morning Madness, which is this next Thursday. So we'll be on summit. So if you have, and it's at the same time, it's multiple other people, hopefully, and there'll be people chasing us. If you have a handheld FM radio, bring that along, and you can use that, and you could probably activate the peak with just that. You wouldn't even need to use HF. So bring yours along, and all you need is 4 contacts, like you said. The other point is that many new people don't realize you do need to log, and you need to make sure you're ready to log, because if you don't log, then you don't get the points. You've got to put the point after you log your contacts, then you actually put them in the website to get the points. And so have either a paper log or something available and ready when you come to the trailhead on Thursday as well. So I'm just going to throw a free-for-all out there. Are there any other things that we need to talk about before we go? Any other questions or just comments or anything? Dan?
Just a case in point. So if you go out to SOTA Watch right now, WA7JTM is going to be on Scarlet Mountain at 6:30, looking for contacts. So there's a good opportunity to break out the HT and chase some points.
Right, and if you actually chase him, then when we get on the summit the next week and you are activating, then you get a complete, which means you've actually activated and chased the same summit. So there's kind of they keep track of that as well. So that's kind of fun. Yeah, anything else?